All right, morning. Sorry. Morning, everyone. Let's get going here. Sorry about the small um, PowerPoint here. For some reason, I'm having trouble getting it enlarged. Get that sorted for you tomorrow. All right, let's jump into it. Okay. U.S. markets had a kind of sideways choppy session overnight. We bounced around a little bit, but very little volatility, to be honest. Um, after just kind of consolidating on the back of a few-day rally that we've had off of the bottoms at 1598. We did have the S&P that came out and upgraded their outlook of U.S. sovereign debt to stable from negative. So that's actually was quite a big thing. I think it's important going forward. And then we had a new poll by economists that showed that they expect the Fed tapering to start in the fourth quarter of this year. So I think that's quite clearly where consensus is, and we need to work off of that going forward in any new news. All right, the Asian markets were mostly down. I think we had Australia, which was closed the previous day, which is the only one that was in the green, and it just was trying to play catch up a little bit. But for the most part, everything down across the board. We do have the Japanese yen that strengthened a little bit overnight, obviously probably causing a little bit of the weakness there in the Asian markets, and we also, knowing that that's a big risk-off indicator, probably looking to think that may happen elsewhere today. All right, we're jumping into corporate action. There's nothing on the earnings front today, but we had Telkom that came out with a full-year trading statement. They decided to impair the carrying value of its assets by 12 billion rand. So the NAV now is at 34. Headline earnings per share to be lower between 232 and 244 as a result of the cost of voluntary severance packages and a provision for the competition tribunal fines and other legal matters of 592 million rand. So not positive news to come out of Telkom. There probably never ever will be positive news ever again out of Telkom. Impala's was cut to neutral versus buy at Nomura. That's pretty much it on the company news. And market data out today, we've got UK industrial production, UK manufacturing production, we've got local manufacturing production, and then we've got wholesale inventories out of the US at 4 o'clock. So very little data to go off of today. Probably more on the back of following the action on the day today. All right, let's jump into the maps. Oh, Claudius, you just gave me the brilliant tip. Sorry, I saw it too late. Okay, we'll jump into the maps here. All right. Well, first one I want to look at is the rand. I guess the reason why I want to look at the rand is strictly on a closing basis. We kind of made a bit of a little flag or narrowing wedge or whatever you say. I guess you would just call it a flag pattern here. But we closed for the first time on a closing basis. We closed above. We made new closing lows. We actually closed up at 1019 last night, I think. This morning you can see where we're opening. Yeah, so we closed at 1018.5 last night. This morning we're continuing to weaken. Remember the intraday lows that we saw on that wick there? You can see we're at 1028.5, which we're literally a chip shot away from right now. I don't see any way that we don't trade at least to that level this morning, and I think we're going to break through it. I mean, new closing lows is really significant. We could very easily trade up to 10.5 from this level. I mean, there's nothing stopping us. And the one thing I'll say is, it's not just rand that's blowing out. We're having emerging market currencies that are just absolutely getting ripped apart, and commodity currencies. So it's really taking the brunt of both worlds. I mean, we've seen the Australian dollar has actually fallen about 10% in the last month. Versus the US dollar. I mean, this has kind of been a steroid induced version of that same sort of trade. So it's not just commodities, also emerging markets, and it's really the rand's just really taking it on the head from global markets. All right, let's look at the chart on Standard Bank. I'm going to show here. So we've actually broken on a closing basis just ever so slightly. We made a new closing low going all the way back to December of last year. And this is going to look a bit rough, so I won't shorten it too much. But you can see here, making a little bit of a head and shoulder pattern here in Standard Bank. Not a little bit, it's actually quite clearly defined head and shoulder pattern, I think. And we've broken basically down out of that pattern on a closing basis. I mean, it's ever so slightly, so I'd wait for confirmation on that. I think if we can kind of trade below oh 08 and hang below oh 08 for a little bit, that would kind of be confirmation for me. But geez, I mean, there's a hell of a big target to the downside here. We'll at least be trading down to $100 if we break below and can hold below this 108 level in my mind. So keep a close eye on this one. There could be plenty of further downside to come on Standard Bank. Just watch this one closely. Obviously, the banking sector is looking quite weak at the moment. Remgro, I'll show. I'm just going to show Remgro on the fact that we talked about this one and this big support level here around 186, which we've really come down and held quite significantly a few times. But it's making such a good-looking flag pattern that I think breaking above, further out that we go to the right, in terms of number of days, the easier it'll be to break above this level. But I don't see any reason. Technically, this is still a beautiful pattern. If we sort of break up above about 191.5, I think Remgro could also catch some legs and maybe retest the highs. So watch that one in the next few days. I want to show Steinhoff. Steinhoff's actually the pattern kind of looking a little bit similar to the Rand here. It's just it hasn't gone totally parabolic, so it's actually coming off of selling. But to me, in my mind, this chart is actually we haven't fully broken out of the downtrend yet. So you can see there. I think I would be more convinced if we were to get above that level. But I think that this chart is starting to turn a little bit bullish. This obviously should be, the guys especially that are looking for retail exposure. Here locally would probably starting to shift the bias here because they generate so much of their profits from offshore that it's not in rand. So obviously the bottom line is going to be instantly boosted. Whereas a lot of the others are just importing here, so their margins are going to be compressed. So I really think the shift into this thing is going to start to happen, and it's been in such a tight range. This thing's really been pinballing around between 24.5, kind of 25 and a quarter. I think if we can break up to the upside above 25 here, this thing's a real opportunity on the long side, and especially if we can get above trendline resistance, which is about 28.50 now, or sorry, 25.80 now. All right, let's have a look at Anglo Gold. I'll show this on maybe the 30-day chart. It's also kind of flagging a little bit. Why does it automatically just give me the okay, we'll just go back into this little line chart. But you can see here it's actually set up a beautiful little support level there at about 172.5, which we managed to cross back above yesterday at the close. We closed at 73.75. Just a perfect shape pattern. I really like the look of it, and we kind of reversing kind of a head fake to the downside and reversing back up through that support level and up through the flag here at through about 172.50, 172. I think this thing could potentially have a lot of room to the upside. To me, the golds are starting to trade as though most all the bad news is priced in. Obviously, the weak rand really helps our local miners, especially in the rand price. So keep that in mind. I really think that we could have some, these things are starting to bottom out. You're seeing it in Siboneyes, you're seeing it in all the golds a little bit. So watch us closely. There can be some big rand moves here pretty soon. All right. CFR I want to show. CFR is kind of, I just wanted to point it out today because you can see where the rand is. All things being equal, there's a very good chance this thing breaks out to the upside today. That I need to shorten up really a little bit so you can see it a little bit more clearly. But the closing high on this thing, or the all-time high, the closing high is at 92.251. Yesterday I think we traded intraday, we traded the same sort of level, 92.62. So 92.62 is intraday high, but 92.51 on a closing basis, which we couldn't hold above yesterday. Right now, the closing price with this rand is sort of at those levels around 92.70. This thing, if it doesn't get all the way up here and it kind of fades around where it closed yesterday, could end up looking quite head and shoulderish. So this is a big inflection point, I think, right now in CFR. If we can take out the highs, and hold it for any length of period of time. I mean, yesterday I think we got up there for about 5 minutes, and it really failed off of that level. But if we can get above that closing level and hold it for 15, 20 minutes, I think you got to try to play this thing on the long side. Just be very careful shorting that. What's that? And the Prada results are out today as well, so keep that in mind. All right. Able, I'll shorten it up again now. You can see here's a little bit of a longer term chart. If we just want to shorten it up, obviously been a very bearish chart. Yesterday had reasons to run as well. Couldn't really do anything on the back of the JP Morgan upgrade. We obviously making a bit of an upward sloping wedge here that could be breaking out to the downside. I also want you to watch this one quite closely. If we were to turn up off of these same sort of levels, this one also could look a bit like an inverse head and shoulder. So just watch this closely. If we can close below 17, I think this thing could break down, could make new lows. But if it holds it, this might be worth a long. So watch this one really closely. Could have could bounce around quite a lot. And the last one I'm going to show is on London Stock Exchange here. This is ITV. And you can see here, yesterday we tested this thing to the upside, kind of broke through resistance for a little bit, couldn't break through on a closing basis, but above about 130, call it 135 and a half. I think you can be on the long side of ITV, and really from the breakout of this pattern, there's quite a bit of room to run, so probably about 10% of the upside there left if we break out on ITV. That's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot.